the small room, Spiros talks. Big nose and lively eyes. B2B broadcast every day. Life and news, oh how it flies. Less than 500 followers. He brings the world to light. Funny jokes and serious tales. Come on now and hit subscribe.
Welcome to the B2B broadcast, everyone. My name is Spiros, and this is your main source for all things B2B, whether you are just starting out, are a seasoned entrepreneur, or a bona fide expert. We have all the tips, tricks, guides, and hacks to help navigate and wade your way through the volatile waters of business to business. And today is the day, ladies and gentlemen. We have him here, the Procrastination Coach, the almighty Chris Abdey is in the chat. We are going to discuss all things relating to procrastination, relating to motivation, relating to self-doubt, relating to getting in your own way. Well, thank you so much. Chris Abdey is here, the Procrastination Coach, and he's going to speak to us a bit about how we could better manage our time, how procrastination can get in the way, how we can use it to our advantage and overcome it, and become more productive in our day-to-day lives and in our careers. Chris, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, sir. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here today with us. First of all, tell us a little bit about what you do. I gave you a bit of an introduction there, but tell us a bit about yourself and what your job is like.
Right. So my job as a procrastination coach is really to help everybody just be the most productive that they can be. Procrastination is actually I call it a silent killer of dreams, silent killer of aspirations, because a lot of the time what procrastination involves is some sort of fear or some sort of limiting self-doubt that we have. I mean, we've all got these dreams that we want to achieve or we want to follow. But a lot of the times we're too scared to take action. We find ourselves putting it off, or for one reason or another, right? Or it could just be that, some people come to me and they say, I just don't know why I can't get my fence painted. My wife's been yammering at me for over a year and a half. I keep saying I'll do it on Wednesday or I'll do it on Thursday, and it just never happens, right?
Yeah, I think we all have stories like that for sure.
Yeah, so what I do is I sit down with them and I say, okay. And it's actually a holistic approach too, because you have to look at everything. It's not only about, do I have enough time or did I schedule it properly? A lot of the times you have to look at your mindset on something. Is it important to you? If it's not important to you, how do you make it important to you? Sometimes it's about having control. We don't like to be, generally speaking, we don't like to be told what to do. So if you tell me I have to do this on Wednesday, I mean, immediately there's a little bit of resistance there, right?
Yeah, stubbornness, yeah, for sure.
A little bit of stubbornness, resistance. So what you do in those cases is you take back your power. So like in the case with the fence, I said, okay, well, what are you losing by not painting that fence? He's like, I'm losing my peace. She's yammering at me day in and day out about it, right? And I said, okay. So just say, instead of saying I have to paint the fence, just say I choose to paint the fence because, and then he finds his own reason to put in there. And simply that act of changing it from have to choose to, because everything in life is a choice. There's literally two things that aren't a choice, right? Being born and departing this plane. Those are the only two choices you don't have. Everything else is just whatever you're willing to accept as a consequence of action or inaction. So that's essentially what I do. That's one example, but I believe everybody can do everything that they have to do and everything that they want to do. It's just that sometimes we get in the way of ourselves.
So it's very much the approach and kind of your point of view, your outlook on a situation. So take that negativity, the reason you don't want to do it, and turn that into a reason for doing it. Like you said, in your example, the husband would do it so that the wife stops yelling at him, and now the fence is done. So you find the positive in the negative type situation.
Correct. But that's just only the first sort of facet, right? The second facet really revolves around your energy levels too. I mean, if I tell let's just go back to the same fence scenario. If I tell my wife I'm going to go out at 5 in the morning and paint the fence, not going to happen. Five in the morning to paint the fence, especially on like a weekend. Weekday not going to happen. Weekend not going to happen either.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have to schedule the things that you have to do. You have to look at your energy levels, right? So when are you most active during the day? When are you going to have the energy to do these things that you have to do or you plan to do? It's not all about just sticking it in your calendar. You have to find the time when you're most energetically apt to be able to do it. So already, painting the fence is going to be a little bit physically demanding, right? So you want to pick a time when you are at your peak. You're not going to want to do it at 5 in the morning. You're just getting out of bed. You're not going to want to do it at 9 o'clock at night. You're getting ready to get into bed, right? So you want to pick a time when you've had you're at a peak energy level, right?
And does
And
that? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Does that? Do you find that there's a sort of an algorithm to that, or does it vary from person to person?
oh no, that varies from person to person. I mean, there are some people that are night owls, there's some people that are morning people. Um, it does vary person to person, but alongside that, you also have to look at the energy levels in general, right? So we look at sleep habits, we look at diet, we look at exercise, we look at you know what are you putting into your body? I mean, you're not going to feel like painting that fence if you just had a six pack of beer either, right? Look at a lot of different facets to that. But if there's some sort of like magic algorithm or magic pill, I mean, it would just be knowing yourself, knowing when you are energetically available to do certain things.
And so, when did you first realize that you had the knowledge or ability to help people, and what did that revelation kind of look like for you?
Well, I am a master procrastinator, so I am well adept in what that looks like. I think I really understood it many years ago when I first started at working in call centers right after high school, right? Sort of those stepping stone jobs, and people would often come to me, for advice or they, complain to me about certain things, and I just say, well, why don't you do this? And they would say, "Oh, okay, yeah, I can try that. Hey, it really works, man. I should be paying you for this." And it sort of went like that for many, many years. I didn't really start doing it as like a profession until about 2 years ago, like with the title, I mean. But every job I've ever held anywhere, whether it be, with a team or up to the C-level executives, I realized that I really had a penchant for helping others get through that. And then in the same course, it also helped me too, right? Because as I'm helping somebody else and I'm telling them not to do something or advising them maybe, you shouldn't do this, I look at my own behavior and like, well, oh, I do that. So it's sort of a quid pro quo in that way too.
Well, yeah, and obviously, it actually ties into what you were saying is that turning a negative into a positive. So, you've put in, so to speak, your 10,000 hours. You're a pro at procrastination, and now you know how to use it to your advantage. You recognize the beast when it's attacking, and you know how to tame it and actually be productive. And I wanted to ask you next, how much research goes into your work, and is there a scientific approach to it for you? What do you think makes your practice unique as opposed to other life coaches, let's say?
Well, I mean, that's it's probably a long question. I'd ask you how much time you had. But essentially, what the process is, it depends on the person. Some people are very spiritual. Some people are very Gnostic. Some people are very scientific based. So there is a little bit of a method to the madness, so to speak. There's a So the first part is obviously asking them where they think they feel their problem is. There's a process of discovery. Then there's a process of, there's a process of elimination too, figuring out, what's going to work and what's not going to work for a certain person. So how I guess I differ from sort of like a gym coach or like an athlete coach, just as an example, would be I don't have like a set regimen or a set program for everybody. It's not a one size fits all. So my approach is different in that aspect, in that I generally only work with between 5 to 10 people at a time, period. Just because, you need to monitor, you need to follow up. And I do tailor it for everyone's specific needs. And I do know that there are a lot of coaching programs out there that they take more of a one size fits all approach, which doesn't necessarily work all the time. And I get that. And I get that it causes some stigma in the industry too, because there are people that, go out there, they go looking for a coach, and then they say, oh, I worked with you for 8 weeks and, nothing changed, right? And I actually ran across this a little while ago with another time management coach. He came to me. I respect him, but he came to me. He was doing pretty well. He said, I don't understand it. I've been working with this person for 6 months and then still haven't gotten anywhere. And I said, 6 months. Okay, well, what are you doing? And, he says, well, we've got him on these different techniques. We've got him on, these different applications. We've got him with reminders in the calendar. We've changed around his schedules. We've done everything. And I said, well, did you, take him through his mindset, his focus and his energy? And he sort of said, well, no. And I said, well, okay. So, I sat with him and we worked together. And so we augmented his program so that he could take a more like bird's eye view of everything. Because it isn't just about, who can slide what into a calendar. Because, I mean, anybody can do that.
And
You
I'm
could say,
glad I'm glad you brought this up, because one of the questions that I did have for you are there, because procrastination can often be caused, I feel, by depression. Sometimes there are deeper rooted things affecting you. Have you ever had an instance where you've had to turn a client away because you felt that they needed possibly like a therapist instead of a life coach?
I've never turned a client away specifically for that. It depends on and that's where the discovery comes in too, right? So if your level of procrastination is such that you cannot get out of bed in the morning, you can't function at a baseline level, then that is where, I have to say, um, I'll be happy to keep working with you, but we're not going to be able to tackle what you need to tackle. So you would do with a little bit of therapy. And you often can work alongside a coach in therapy, and here's the big but, um, if you're going to do that, then, everybody that's involved should be aware of, what, it's a little bit of a delicate balance. So everybody should be aware of what's sort of going on behind the scenes, right? So not exactly what goes on in sessions, but you kind of need to be able to say, okay, we're working on this, show this to your therapist, make sure that it's in line with whatever you guys are discussing as well.
Yeah, so that there's no kind of not cross contamination, but that one's not interfering with the other. Yeah.
Exactly. And then there are, of course, other more serious aspects as well. So, excuse me one minute, I got a call.
Yep.
There you go. Yeah. So it does happen. Yes. I've never turned a client away because of that. But I have said that, if we're going to continue together, then you are going to have to work on the other aspect as well.
Understandable. And so to kind of flip this around, can you give us, I don't, obviously, your client's privacy is very important to you, but can you give us a bit of like a specific example of how you helped someone and what that looked like? Was it a life altering sort of change? Was it an improvement to their work life?
Yeah, for sure. So I did one client in particular comes to mind, two of them actually. Actually, that was actually a real example with the fence.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, he really did have that issue with the fence. Um, there was another one I had that really stood out to me and making an impact. And this individual, she's very accomplished. She's very bright, very smart. Um, she was about to get a position in a company where she was going to be sort of in a human resources role, and she had a lot of doubts. So she wasn't taking the position because she felt that she didn't measure up, right? So we kind of tackled it in the sense that we did a little bit of like a thought trap challenge, right? Where we look at, well, do you have any evidence to back up that, you wouldn't be any good at this position? Do you have any any reason to believe that you can't handle the position? Um, and so, working together with her, and there were a few different aspects to that. So one of them was that it was an internship position, so she felt like she really had to perform, right? So there was a little bit of performance anxiety because her friend had, recommended her for the position too, right? So so there was a little bit of that. So a lot of that was just working on it with mindset, and actually just spoke to her actually a few days ago, just following up. And she's doing well. She's almost at the end of the internship. They're offering her a contract, and she's going to be taking on a paid position. And
That's fantastic.
she originally didn't even want to do it.
Well, yeah, self doubt can, like, we can be our own worst enemies oftentimes, and I'm sure that's a main part of how you help people overcome their own self doubt. And a lot of times you just need another human being to tell you, why do you think this way about yourself? Because we tend to say the meanest things to ourselves, and then, the result is you're afraid to take action, you're afraid to go for that position. And so another question I wanted to ask you, you did mention following up with clients. How do you keep them accountable? How do they stay on the right path? And what does that kind of look like?
Yeah, so this is a double-edged sword. The whole accountability question is a double-edged sword because a lot of my clients do expect, to a certain extent, actually many clients for many life coaches do expect to a certain extent that you'll be there as an accountability partner. And yes, that is okay to a certain extent. But I always say that, I'll be your accountability partner, but you have to learn to be accountable to yourself because at the end of the day, I have check-ins. Usually, what I do with my clients is I start out really heavy. So, we'll do like a 10-minute, like literally, we'll do a 10-minute to a 15-minute call every single day, as well as the session, just to check in, see how they're feeling, see what they're doing, especially in the first couple of weeks, just to see, excuse me, just to see what's working, what's not working. Are you moving forward the way that you expect that you'd be moving forward as? And then we start to slowly wean them off, and we look for those reasons that they can be accountable to themselves. And it's actually it's psychologically speaking, and a lot of times it's easier to be accountable to someone else or to something else than to be accountable to yourself. Um, Going back to the guy with the fence painting, I mean, he also had some personal projects he was working on that he could never finish because it was only his. He had
Yeah.
nobody he was kind of answering to. And at the end of the day, I try to not enable, but act as a temporary crutch system, so to speak. So you have a broken leg, you use the crutch while you're learning to heal and you're learning to walk again, right? Ideally, that's what I want to do for my clients in terms of accountability. And how do you become accountable to yourself? Well, you look towards more of the inspiration, more of the joy, more of the end result that you're going to get, and how you're learning in the learning along the journey.
Yeah. And I'm with you there. I mean, you can only do so much. I mean, somebody can go and get themselves a personal trainer at the gym, but if they're not going to show up, that personal trainer can't really help them if they're not going to, it goes both ways. It's a team effort, like you said. You have to be part of that team. You can't just be dragged by somebody else, no matter how much money you throw at the problem. And another question I kind of had for you as we're sort of getting toward the end here is, what would you say to skeptics who would argue that life coaches is just common sense repackaged? What actually gives your practice value?
Gotcha. No, and excuse me, it's a valid question. I mean, it is a valid question. So what gives it value is that, why do people pay $1,000 for a mirror? You can go on Amazon, you can find $1,000 mirrors. You can even get $15,000 mirrors. I mean, what it is a reflection of you, right? I mean, why do I have to do that? So a thing that you have to understand about, any life coach or any therapist or anybody, any other human being anyway, any other human being you're talking to, a lot of times we can't see the forest for the trees. We don't know what we don't know. So there are blind spots. Excuse me. And so, a life coach, therapist, friend, supporter, even an accountability partner might be able to see things in you that you can't see yourself because you've got those blind spots. I can give you an example. Like even I go to coaches. Like I go to, I go to a business coach. I go to a, not accountability. It's more like processes coach. So like when I'm making processes for a client, sometimes I'll actually make the program and then I'll go to another coach and I'll say, hey, look at this. And this is what, I'll explain a little bit about what the idea is. And then I'll say, hey, what am I missing here? Because I think about it all day. I go over this all day and then, I may miss something.
Sure,
And
and
this,
like a lot of
yeah.
therapists have their own therapists, right? So,
Oh yeah. Oh, if you haven't been to therapy and you're a therapist, I don't trust you.
yeah, exactly. So it's fair to say, I mean, like you have really put a lot of effort into this, and it has become your life's work. Would you say that right now you're on a path to something else, something greater, or is this what you have dedicated your life to? Is this what you're going to continue doing? Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Oh, in 10 years, I'm definitely going, I'm still going to be doing this. I'm never going to retire. But I am going to be going on to different, this is sort of a long-term stepping stone. Procrastination is not going to go away. Burnout's not going to go away. It's only going to get worse as we go on with technology. Now we're talking AI. Now we're talking,
Oh
all
yeah.
these other distractions that we have on a daily basis. And, could go do a whole other episode of distractions. But eventually, what I want to be doing is I want to set up different foundations and things in I can't do schools because, heaven forbid. But at the university level, and even going to the high school level, actually instituting these programs that give you tools to deal with procrastination, like, analysis paralysis. It's a form of procrastination. And a lot of people are having that, now coming out of universities. They've gone through half their program and they're like, oh, is this really what I want to do? I'm dragging my feet. I can't get that final exam done. So for me, this is a lifelong thing, and it's only going to get bigger.
Yeah, it could definitely, it's hard. I see it akin to working out very often, and a lot of times when I start working out, I'll get through that first week or 2 weeks, and then I start. At first, it's great. The first couple of days, you're like, oh yeah, you almost feel like you've built muscle mass. But then 2 weeks in, you look in the mirror and you feel like you should be shredded, but your body still looks the same because it's a long process that's going to take months or maybe even a year. And a lot of times people lose sight of the end goal, and that's part of what you do. You keep them motivated, you stop them from procrastinating, and you help them believe in themselves, because you're not just a procrastination coach, you are a life coach, and you do tackle all of those things. And I want to ask you if you could give me and my audience, one piece of advice, the most important thing to motivate themselves or avoid procrastination, what would that be?
Oh, there's no real silver bullet as we went through, but
Yeah.
the one thing, I call it the power of three. So when you feel yourself dragging your feet and you feel like you don't want to, you don't necessarily want to move forward with something you need to move forward with because you're afraid, especially afraid or self-doubt, because I've found it's about 85% of the time. So in those cases, the power of three. So what's the power of three? When you're about to go out and you're about to start this thing and you feel that resistance, you feel it's starting to stop, you're like, oh, it's not going to work out. I don't know what's going to do, what's going to happen. So just take a minute, close your eyes, and then think about three of your greatest accomplishments in your life, and how they made you feel. You overcome those challenges that were associated, and then you think of three things that you're really proud of and you succeeded in the last 3 years, aside from those in your life, and then you think about three things that you've succeeded in the last 3 months. And by the time that you've gone through that, you're now rooting yourself in more positive psychology. You're rooting yourself and you're confirming to yourself that you have overcome adversity before. You have done something new before and come out ahead. You have moved forward and nothing bad's happened. So you have a renewed sense of confidence in just taking that next step.
That sounds like great advice. So remind yourself of what you're capable of, but don't go too far back. Right? You want to remind yourself that you're still doing great. Like, don't think about something that happened 10 years ago. I mean, you can do that, but you want to make sure that you're still validating that you have momentum, that you're still going.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's a great outlook to have. And I want to thank you again so much for being here today, Chris. And let us know, where can we find you? Where can we find Chris Abdey on the internet?
Oh, you can find me on LinkedIn. It's just Chris Abdey, or you can find me at procrastinationstation.ca.
Perfect. And is there anything else you'd like to add? Anything we haven't gone over?
No, I think we hit just about everything. I'm really grateful, and thank you for having me on the show.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for sharing all your wisdom with us. And open invitation. Come back anytime you'd like. I'd love to have you.
Oh, you'll regret that.
All right. Well, thanks again. I hope you have a great weekend. And everybody, it's Chris Abdey on LinkedIn. If you have any doubts, if you need a little kick in the butt to get things going, please go check this man out. I went to your LinkedIn myself. I saw the packages that you have to offer, and I think it's a really good deal. So thank you again, Chris. And I hope you all have all the success and that your clients have all the success in their lives. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. What a great show. What a great conversation. I loved every minute of it. And Chris Abdey, like I said, has an open invitation to come back to the show whenever he'd like. And we're already in the talks to make that happen again. Now, none of you submitted any questions for him this time around. But next time around, if you like what you saw, if you want to learn more, first of all, Chris Abdey on LinkedIn. Go check the man out, see what he has to offer, and type some questions below that we could ask Chris next time. And there will be a next time. But until then, thank you for watching the B2B broadcast. My name has been Spiros. And if you want to chime in, if you want to comment on anything Chris and I discussed, please leave a comment down below, like and subscribe. It really helps the video. It really helps the channel. If you want to go above and beyond, the Patreon link is in the description. It's at the B2B broadcast. And I love you, but not really. So don't make it weird.
In a small room, Spiros talks. Big nose and lively eyes. B2B broadcast every day. Life and news, oh how it flies. Less than 500 followers. He brings the world to light. Funny jokes and serious tales. Come on now and hit subscribe. Like and subscribe, don't you see? Spiros needs us, you and me.